I'm Jess Tagg. I'm Director of Sales at Blis, and it's a real privilege to be hosting this panel today with all of you. So just some of the themes that we're going to be covering today. We're going to be looking at some challenges, so uncovering gender bias, underrepresentation in leadership, navigating male-dominated spaces, especially in the programmatic industry, career pathways, so what is it like to really secure a job in digital media today, and aspirations versus reality, or Pinterest versus reality. What is the gap between career expectations and that real lived experience? So, just kicking off, what unique challenges do women face in the northern digital landscape today versus other regions? So, Caroline, I'll start with you.
I think it's fair to say that in the north, without doubt, there are fewer opportunities. There are smaller teams with fewer layers of management, which basically means that the opportunities at senior level are fewer and far between. Progression opportunities are more competitive. We certainly see a sort of less volume of roles at that sort of senior level. So when candidates are coming to look for that, that senior level opportunity, it is more competitive in the north. Also, sort of niche areas of digital media, there are fewer businesses up here, which means that if your specialism is within programmatic or ad tech trading, there are fewer opportunities naturally in the north than in the south.
I'd also add to that, because I think there's like a stereotype of different roles. So normally or traditionally, senior leadership is always around males. I'd say sales roles as well, predominantly around males, but also like traders. So I work in programmatic display, and all the traders, all the analytical roles, they tend to be around males. But actually, how can we attract more women? Is that to do with the job description, the recruitment? We don't have the ideas. We need to think about those. But I do think that the stereotypical roles lead to male or display, and hopefully we're trying to change that slowly but surely.
And I would say that isn't even just a northern versus other regions
Correct.
thing. That's definitely, for women in general, coming up against that challenge for sure.
Yeah.
So, Gill, did you have anything?
As you can tell, I'm not from the north, so but I definitely agree in terms of when I started in the 90s, we didn't really have digital departments then, but we did have buyers and planners, and traditionally, the buying was traditionally mainly men. There were a few women in there who gone on to have hugely successful careers, but it was definitely more of a bias and more of a difference if you wanted to go into that space. And I'm not sure how actively it was encouraged as well. So I think that has remained true. And potentially with a smaller pool, it's more difficult in different regions.
So, to all of you, what advice would you give to women trying to break into media today?
Okay. As with all these things, I think it's much more difficult in some ways to get a foothold, and actually your network, and you have to work really hard to get seen. More and more people I hear about are applying for roles, and the numbers are much larger than they ever were. So for me, it's about trying to get to know, network, put your opinion out there, say yes to as many things as possible in terms of things like this, really trying to build a huge network of people, but also looking slightly sideways. The exact role that you think you might want to have, there might not be an opportunity in that, but actually there might be an adjacent role. You might have different skills. Again, when I started in media, most people sort of fell into media because no one really knew what it was. They thought they wanted to work in advertising, and then we end up media. And actually, it's such a fulfilling role, and there's so many different parts to it. It's about, for me, getting to know people, speaking to them, asking them. You don't necessarily want to say to them, "Can you get me a job?" But I tell you what, most people love you asking them about how their career, how they got on their career, and sharing that. And you will find that they will tend to, and I can say this, you're all welcome to come and speak to me at any point, because it's about, we're all there to help each other, and you'll have more people you meet, the more skills you'll develop, and the more opportunities you'll have for different roles. But don't just turn down a role because it doesn't sound exactly what you want, would be my main advice.
I'd completely back up what Gill's just said there. We do quite a lot of work with, or we have close links with the universities. We guest lecture sometimes at Man-Met Uni and Salford Uni. So we get a lot of graduates coming to us who have a very specific idea of what they want, but actually don't really know the industry that well. So I would say starting out in media or digital or marketing, you need to keep an open mind, speak to different businesses, speak to recruiters, speak to peers, get mentorship, get experience where you can, and really keep an open mind, because the amount of people we speak to who actually don't really, they've got their degree or they've got their master's degree, but actually don't really know the opportunities that are out there. So I would say it's really important. And on our part, it's about educating as well, really selling opportunities, to all candidates, but also specifically to females that may not be typical opportunities that females might be attracted to.
And just to add to that, I think LinkedIn is a great tool for that. I feel like by adding different brands and businesses, adding people who have different roles in that business, as well as other roles that you aspire to be or to be a part of, just gives you some knowledge and some insight into what they do at that business and any updates that they post, and keeps you updated with the business as well. So I think all that helps.
I was just going to add as well, really important to get involved in networking groups, MPA Next Gen, Young Bloomers, really, really valuable, especially when you're starting out in the industry.
You really need to build your tribe, don't you? Because they're going to go with you throughout your whole career. So important. Guys, thank you so much. Have you experienced or witnessed barriers to progression, such as gender bias or lack of mentorship? So Gill and Natalie, I'm going to look at you for this.
I think with mentorship is very important, especially as you transition to the next part of your career. And I think looking at female leadership within our industry, I feel like people that have been in the industry 10, 15, 20 years, they're sometimes hidden behind a brick wall because they are so busy. But what I would say is seek and find those people, those women in leadership roles, because they are very valuable. I know the way we're working is changing, generations are changing, but essentially they've had to fight to get a seat at that table. They've had to fight to use their voice and be heard. So essentially there's so much that they can help us with as young leaders to progress and extend our skill set and help us understand how to navigate in certain situations. So I'd say use LinkedIn, use your network groups, and seek them, find them, and utilize them, even just a little bit, just to get a nugget or one gem that can help you in your career.
So in terms of barriers, I think some of the challenges are, and when you're looking at companies, understanding things like the gender pay gap is really important, asking those questions. It's not always an easy question, but understanding where businesses are moving, in what direction they're moving is hugely important. I think we've got a lot of very senior women in media agencies, certainly. Someone like Nat Cummins from Essence Mediacom, you've got a lot of good, strong CEOs. The numbers of women coming into the industry are often above that of men, but it drops off when people have children or find they can't come back to work, or those kind of things. And those numbers are there and they are real, so we should always measure them, because it's understanding that, and I don't think that necessarily has gone away yet, and that's something that we all need to be a part of. I'd say the other thing, and I think Bloom's really important here, and organisations like WACL, everyone in this room is a really good mentor to someone else, and actually there'll be people coming into the industry, there'll be school leavers, and we all as women, and really importantly our male allies, have an important role in making sure that we're bringing everyone up, educating, sharing, and also handing the ladder down rather than drawing the drawbridge up, which probably is something that women have been accused of in the past, and may still happen. But I think my role and everyone here's role is to try and make sure that we offer an arm, a hand to help that and fight the numbers, but keep measuring the numbers and keep pushing on your organisations. And Bloom are really good at this, and WACL like this, campaigning for gender equality. That's all we're really talking about. We're not trying to take the privilege away from anyone. We're trying to have gender equality, and we all have a really important role in designing that and sharing that. I'm sure you have something to add.
Well said, thank you. Caroline, so what changes do you think are necessary to create more inclusive and supportive environments for women in digital media today?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of really key points here. Firstly, let's normalise talking about maternity leave, paternity leave, adoption leave, menopause policies, breastfeeding policies in the same breath that we discuss annual leave. And I think that's something that every business can learn from. You know, it shouldn't be an awkward question at the point of an application, at the point of an interview. These are things that should be publicised about the role. And secondly, let's remove the stigma that a reduced working week or part-time workers equals in some way less ambitious. You know, you can do a really good job, you can progress working a 4-day week or a 3-day week. So I think they're two really key points that, you know, every business can improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you have any examples of businesses that are doing this well? And maybe you don't, that's fine.
I think I thought about this question, and I think it would be unfair. There are several businesses that are doing it well. I don't want to sort of handpick particular companies and leave some out, because I think, you know, some businesses are doing it really well, but I think everybody can improve.
Yeah.
You know, everybody can learn from this. I think, you know, we're in 2025 now. Let's not make it awkward for people to ask questions about maternity, paternity, menopause.
Absolutely. One for all of you. So how can companies actively support women's professional growth beyond just hiring more female talent? So kind of just to build on what Caroline was saying, ways that companies could be supporting women in the workplace. What else could they be doing to actively support?
I think in job descriptions, like I mentioned, by offering flexibility, by offering, mentioning the different policies available as well, just so you don't have to have those awkward conversations, just so we've got full transparency. I also think within an organisation, having those senior women leadership and make sure they are sharing their knowledge, make sure they're in those spaces, make sure we have communities or groups internally where women can ask those questions and feel comfortable and feel as equal as a man in certain conversations and spaces, I'd say.
I was going to say let's focus on allyship internally. Let's make sure that the males in our businesses are behind the females. Let's make sure that professional development is available to everybody.
I'd say completely agree there, and I think it's building on the skill set that women bring to the industry, and it's not about training women to become more like men or training men to become more like women. It's understand that people have different skill sets and routes to solutions. I think male allyship is really important here. We don't want to be in a situation where it's one versus the other. I've worked with several men who've had full parental leave and mentally face the same challenges all women do, but I would love it not to be an issue whichever person is asking for that parental leave, and actually then you know you're going to have really good equality if everyone feels as comfortable with that. We know also men face challenges as well in the workplace that we need to be aware of, and mental health and issues as well. So it's about working together to make an equitable solution, and I think the working from home, the part-time working, all of those things need to be accommodated for everyone to be the best at their job that they can be and to still feel part of an equipped team. And those policies are led from our senior leadership, but also the people here pushing for those policies to be part of what people need in order to do their job really well.
Thank you. I mean, you guys touched on quite a lot there. So, I mean, there's mentoring, professional development, just ensuring that companies are giving the support to women, because women go through so many different changes throughout their life, you know, whether it's having children or the menopause, etc., you know. So it's ensuring there's progressive leadership in place also. There's quite a lot to unpack there. For all of you, again, do you feel long-term career aspirations for women in digital media align with the reality of the industry today?
I think it can be perceived that for females within the industry that progression can be can be slowed down for females. You know, you take time out to have a child, 2 children, 3 children. Are you going to progress realistically at the same speed as your male colleagues? I'm not sure, but I think there is a perception that it is slower for females to progress who've had children, and I would say we need to make it, you know, more accessible for everybody to progress at the same speed, whether you work a reduced working week, whether you've taken time out for maternity, whether you've taken time out for paternity, adoption, whatever. You know, let's make all opportunities accessible for everyone.
Yeah, and I'd just add to that, I think that within businesses, we've got this word about culture. So you hire someone to fit your culture, but actually, if your manager and your manager's manager and your manager's managers all look the same, then we're not working to get new talent in or breed diversity when it comes to women or any other diverse criteria. So I'd just say off the back of that, essentially, who are those key stakeholders? And I know in London, in South, you know, you're a lot more progressive, a lot more ahead, but how can we replicate that quicker up here in the North as well to make those changes and make them happen a little quicker so we can get those diverse workforces?
I don't have an awful lot to add. I think it is, I think all careers in media, you know, you're less likely to join a company, stay in a company for 30 years and then leave. And there's also, we all become invisible once we get past a certain age, which I'm certainly facing. So it's and actually the entry of talent in there. We talked about university, but actually school leavers and bringing people in from different backgrounds is really important. We know that diverse workforces do more successfully in business. So we just need to keep also proving the economic point, not just because it's the right thing to do, it is a really good thing for business. So I think, for me, it's a challenge everywhere of a long-term career because everything changes so much. I think we need to get comfortable with the fact we're probably going to have lattice-shaped careers as opposed to ladder-shaped careers, which isn't a bad thing at all, actually. Looking around at the roles and people in my team they've come from all sorts of different backgrounds, which actually makes them incredibly good at what they do rather than necessarily one thing, but is having to be able to adapt to change. And no one likes change, but actually look at your career in that way. And I'd say the other thing is no one is going to be in control of your career. The only person who's got control of your career is you, and it's about people be able to help you get to the where you want to get to, but you have to have a plan and you have to take control of it. It's if you sleepwalk through it, you'll find yourself having done 10, 15 years and be asking someone, where do I go next? And that's when having a network of different people, you've got a network of support, you've got mentors, you've got coaches, you've got peers, and what you want is that really good balance, and have a look around at where your skill sets could be used elsewhere and develop new skill sets, new expertise. And that's how I'd look at the whole career, rather than you just having to start somewhere and finish at the same point as everyone else, because no one does anymore.
I really love that, the squiddly career. So, no, that's a good takeaway. Caroline, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this. So, has the remote/hybrid working shift affected opportunities for women in particular in the industry?
I think this is a really interesting question, because the whole hybrid remote working shift, you know, this was something that, you know, 5 years ago wasn't even a thing, you know, and it's presented us with many positive things, but also possibly some, you know, downsides now. You know, to begin with, I think, yes, the remote working, hybrid working shift made it easier for, not just for females, for males as well, who had parental duties. You know, suddenly, you know, you're finishing work at home at, you know, 5 or 5:30 and able to get to nursery before 6, when before you were in the city centre and there's no chance of getting back for, you know, to pick up the kids. It does make life a little easier for parents, but one of the issues that we're now seeing is, obviously, as, you know, people that have taken on roles in the last 3 or 4 years, post-COVID era, who had that expectation of having either some remote working or fully remote working, that are now being asked to return to the office more. It is, you know, there are now questions around that flexibility, affordability as well, practical arrangements. So it's actually now presenting new questions, especially for people looking for roles, people who are in roles whose situations have changed in the last 3 years. It's a really interesting factor, and I don't know what the answer is, if I'm honest. But it's certainly bringing up some very interesting questions about, what is the best way forward for people.
It's a really interesting question. I tend to now. My husband's a stay-at-home dad, so already I don't have to run home. But I find I personally prefer to be in work most of the week because that works for me. And in the role I do, I'm not going to meet too many clients in my sitting room. So for me, that works. But it's having that balance. And I think there is a move for more people to going back to work, and that you can see from both sides. I think for me, what's really important is being really clear on what the outcomes are of your team, what you need to do, and making sure you have those regular check-ins. I have a 13-year-old boy. He is very comfortable at creating relationships online, usually playing some awful video game. But a lot of people coming into our industry will have been the same. So we need to understand that there's a bit of balance. There will be times you have to come in, and there will be times that you can work from home. But I think it's never going to be all of one or all of the other necessarily. But some businesses will demand that, and that's also another choice you have to make along your career about what you want to work with and what you don't want to work with. But certainly, I'd say the earlier you are in a career, what you do learn from being in the office is stuff you can't learn at being at home.
I would completely back that up. I think, I speak to people at the start of their career who say to me, I'd really like a remote working role. And I say, you really don't. You need, the only way that you will learn the industry is by being in the office alongside your peers, listening to them on the phone, going along to client meetings. You will not learn as much, full stop. But I think the whole issue, because this is, for a recruitment issue, the company expectations versus employee expectations, it's a varying factor, and that is a new challenge within recruitment for every business. It's interesting times for sure.
And I don't think anyone's got it perfect yet. I think everyone's really facing this kind of conundrum right now. So we'll see. Natalie, I'd love to hear from you. So what inspired you to pursue a career in digital media, and how did you land your first role in the industry?
Well, I did not plan it, but I ended up here. But I studied a degree at McKee University. It was in media. It was media related. And then I had a sandwich year. So the third year, I worked for a PR company. And essentially, the uni had an association with a recruitment agency who got me my first role in advertising, which was digital display. I did not know what digital display was. I did not know what the word programmatic meant. But 10 years later, I'm still here. So
what's an MPU?
So exactly. So I pretty much fell into it. But essentially, when I got the job description and I went for the interview, it's a really sociable industry. It's quite exciting. It breeds creativity. So I was like, my personality seems to fit that. It seems interesting. So even if I try it for the year, it's still something to build up my CV, but I'm here to stay. So it worked out well for me.
Fantastic. Gill, I'd love to hear about your experience.
So I sort of alluded to this, but I started in a media agency called BBJ, which is now iProspect, in the 1990s, when I think I went for an interview to be a TV buyer, and within about 30 seconds they sent me down to be a TV planner. Not just due to my sex, I suspect, but I knew I wanted to work in advertising, and very much didn't really know there was anything called a media company or how it worked. And then the more I learned about it, and I've been doing that since then, but what I've now experienced, I've worked in different industries, taken my skills and moved to doing different types of roles, which is now I'm here where I'm at. But I highly recommend it, but no one seems to just necessarily start knowing that's exactly what they want to do.
Definitely one of the most fun industries to work in. guys, we're coming to the end of the panel. So just to wrap up, I'm going to ask all of you, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self today? And this wasn't a prep question, so sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, great. You go.
This is a really off-the-cuff question. I would have told my 25-year-old self just to have a lot more confidence, belief, and really to have backed herself a bit more and not doubted herself so much.
My first one would have been to do more Pilates. That's a whole different story. I actually say, and I'm sure you do this with Bloom, but when I look at WACL applications, I think to myself, I would never get in now because everyone here is so qualified, side hustles, experience. So I'd probably say to my guy, God, do more shit that everyone else is doing now because you're a hugely impressive lot. So I think a bit more confidence, say yes to more things in, not in just a crazy way, but in work, try more things and experiment a bit more because you're going to have a long career and you're going to be working a long time. And the other one is make sure you work with people. You don't have to be like you, but that you get on with, you can learn from and you respect. That's the most important thing because actually the work will happen around that.
And to myself, I completely echo all of that, completely agree. Networking is key, as we all know, we're in a relationship business. And I'd just say to my 25-year-old self, use your voice more. Not necessarily stand up for yourself, but showcase and shout about your success more and to the right people. Find those key stakeholders with their business, shout about the work you're doing, have rationale, back it up, just to ensure that you are recognised and ensure that you are on the correct career path to progression.
I love that. What a fantastic way to end the panel. Use your voice more. Thank you so much for joining us today.